Welcome everybody, Shir number 958. We're learning today Le'ilei Nishmas Moshe Dov Ben Rabbaran Zisel. Le'ilei Nishmas Blima Basra Moshe. Getting back to our malacha of MEMACHAIK. Okay, so we started talking about Shir in reference to from the Mishabura. We brought down how to work with mud a little bit, not so much negeya for today. What they used to have in those days, they used to have sharp pieces of metal. We said sharp pieces of iron in front of shuls, in front of houses, and they would scrape their shoes. And we said that is running into a problem of MEMACHAIK, scraping, smoothing out leather, because when you're wearing leather shoes, that's a problem. We're going to see other type of shoes also. We'll try and get into that a little bit. But then we saw bottom line was if somebody does it gently, so in most cases, usually it's not a problem. I just want to go through a little bit more in reference to that Indian from the Sefer Oitzer Halachos. So he brings down a reference to scraping off mud from the shoes. Now we mentioned last time, very important to keep in mind, tit lach. It's we're talking about our cases, says the Sefer Oitzer Halachos, is all when it's wet mud. But if it's tit shekavar nis yavesh, al gabe minolav viraglov, then asalakancham b'Shabbos, that will be a problem. Dried up mud is a problem because we said it's running into a problem of toichen, grinding. So first of all, he says, brings on the Sefer Oitzer Halachos. That's good. If you're taking, let's say, a piece of paper, something like that, right? Paper towel, pre-cut paper towel, these tissues, these type of things, are going to your avo or thicker paper towel, whatever, to get off the mud. That would be okay. That's fine because that's not running into a problem of MEMACHAIK. It's only over there whereby one is actually scraping it. So then just wiping it, like we said, and these with tissues, pre-cut paper towels, even a towel possibly, that would be okay. Okay, then he brings down even with one's hands, somebody's going to wash their hands. Okay, so all that is fine. Now, as far as what we said in reference to somebody has leather shoes and they're going to scrape it and they have some mud, wet mud, now they want to scrape it on the wall or they scrape it on the floor, or sometimes on the floor. Scrape it on the floor or on the wall. So that already a little bit of a machlokes because of the problem. The problem is that when you have, let's say, mud on one's shoes, or somebody has wet mud, there are those who answer it because of the problem of ashvei gumais. One is making, if you have a dirt ground, let's say there's a dirt ground, and you start rubbing your foot over there, whether it's not so much the problem of the leather, it's a problem of either making a hole or smoothing out a mound that might be in the ground, which we're going to talk about, how that works in reference to the malacha of chayresh, plowing, and we spoke a little bit about in reference to the malacha of boina, building. But when you have a dirt ground and you smoothen it out and you level it out, that is not allowed to be done on Shabbos. So that would be a problem over here, according to some, whereby you're trying to get out the mud, but you're smoothing out the ground. That's number one. Number two, when it comes to a wall, one is scraping their foot, their leather shoe on the wall that has some wet mud on it. He brings down also b'shem that there are those who aser it. This is all brought down, by the way, in Sif Vav, what we spoke about last time. But Valgabe, we're just reading right now from the Sefer Oitzer Halachos. Valgabe koisel shalavanim yesh eisrim mishum demechse kamoisif alabinyan. That looks, not it is, but it looks like you're adding to a structure, which we've spoken about in the malacha of boina. So if you add, somebody puts cement or something like that into a wall, that of course can be done on Shabbos. That's moisif alabinyan. So over here it looks like also you're putting in mud, wet mud, that looks like you're adding to a structure on Shabbos, which is a problem. But the bottom line is, so said those who are machmir, but the bottom line is he does bring down the ma'aseh that the Ramah brings the shita of the Rush, that's matter in both cases. Okay, because of the fact that the binyan gerua, who is it's like a weak type of a building. I mean, it looks possibly like building. It's a very weak type of a thing. Nobody has kavanah to do that. The kavanah is just to remove the mud. Okay, so then he brings further that from the Taz that yesh lismach al makilim the kaven hu midi d'Rabbanan. Since it's a d'Rabbanan, you could rely on the makilim. So he brings from the Taz, and he brings this also from Kachkas v'Shulchan Aruch Rav, Mishabura, and so on. So that on the ground. on the ground. You should do it lightly. Just be careful to do it. But preferably one should do it on a pavement. That's the best thing to do it on a pavement, or on the wall like we saw, or on the beam, and so on. Okay, so now he goes further to say, like we just said, that he brings from the Shulchan Aruch Harav, the lechatchila tov l'kanech b'koire. Best thing, if possible, preferably to do it on a beam, a bekoisel shall eight, so let's say like a wooden type of wall, not so much a stone wall. A stone wall is usually worse because of the problems of boina. Shemutal divrei hakol, then it will be mutter according to everybody. And if somebody doesn't have one of these things in their surroundings, right? I have mud on my shoe and I want to scrape it off. I don't have a wooden wall, right? I don't have any beams available. So then he brings down Tov l'kanech b'koisel shalavonim yosem mibakarka. It would be better to rub off the mud on the leather shoe on the b'koisel shalavonim, on a wall of stones, better than the ground. Because again, we want to keep in mind the ground. If you do it too hard, you're running into problems of ashvei gumais, leveling out and making a hole and packing in the dirt or whatever. These are big problems. But again, when we say ground, we're talking about a dirt ground. When it comes to pavement, pavement is pavement. If it's just plain the pavement part of it, where there's no like separations in between, it's just plain pavement, so that's nothing. It's like the wall. That's the same thing like the wall. Okay, so now just to go through Sefer Lamites Malachas brings down a few other ideas. Again, somebody has, what's the case? We have the leather shoe, and they got some dirt on their shoe, and they want to get, let's say, like we said, wet mud, and they want to get it off. Now, I do want to mention, he brings on also the Sefer Lamites, the Sefer Eitzra Halachos, that the problem of dried up mud is teichen, but if it's something the person has on their shoe, some dirt, that there's no problem of teichen, let's say, like a cookie, a cookie piece got stuck on, or something like that, or a piece of food, whereby it was already ground up from before, or possibly something that didn't grow from the ground. Whatever the case is if regular type, or just plain schmutz, plain dirt, so that will be okay. It's only over there where you have a problem of mud dried up that you have a problem of teichen. So that's as far as the teichen part. But anytime it's wet, like we said, then you don't have to worry about it. He says also, he brings down the Sefer Lamites Malachos on page 915, that scraping one's shoe against the edge of a stair, like we saw, as long as it's not so sharp, and even if it will be sharp, just doing it like the Mishnah said, doing it very gently. And certainly he brings down against the curb, concrete curb. Somebody, usually many times you have that. Somebody got some schmutz or mud or something, wet mud on their shoe, right? So they have, by the end of the street, you have over there the concrete curb, that just scraping it off over there would be fine. It's just don't scrub it to who knows what. You just scrape it off. It's no problem with the curb, the curb on the concrete curb on the sidewalk. That would be okay on the sidewalk. Now, in all cases, one should try, if possible, to, like we said, not to scrape it too hard, even when it's on the curb or whatever, because we did see that the Magen Avram wants to say scraping against any bar, even if it's a thicker bar, whatever the case is, and it's a dull edge, even over there, it's problematic. So, if somebody does it over there even hard, there's what to rely on. The Taz doesn't say that, but if where possible, always try and do it not so, just gently and not so vigorously, and then you cover all grounds. But definitely, if it's a sharp-edged thing, just to do it very lightly, that's for sure. But otherwise, all the other cases would be fine. Okay, this is just to end off the what we said from the Sefer Eitzra Halachos. I just want to read it inside. Sefer Eitzra Halachos says, "V'imhu meluchlach b'davar she'ein boi mishum toichein is shari." In other words, if the dirt is nothing whereby there's a problem of grinding, it's okay. Let's say a person has a piece of paper stuck on their shoe, whatever, something like that, with no wording. The wording becomes a little bit problematic, but a paper towel, sometimes wet, and it's stuck on, so they're scraping it like that. So, these are all fine, as long as you don't have an issue of toichein, grinding, and which is usually most of the time dried up mud. Okay, we're going to stop over here. Thank you for listening. Atzlach and bracha kol tov.